New details this morning in the investigation into former President Trump's storage of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. We're learning the FBI interviewed his former top lawyers, Pat Cipollone and Patrick Philbin, earlier this year, after which the Justice Department noticed something alarming on subpoenaed Mar-a-Lago surveillance tape. CNN's Caitlin Polantz joins us now with the latest on this. Caitlin?
Brianna, everything we are learning here is showing how the Justice Department arrived to the point where they felt it was absolutely necessary to go into Mar-a-Lago a week ago and seize documents that were being kept there. This new information now is filling out a little bit about how we got to that point. Our Evan Perez and Gabby Orr were able to confirm yesterday that Pat Cipollone and Patrick Philbin were interviewed by the FBI earlier this year. So Pat Cipollone, Pat Philbin, they were the two, they were both in the White House counsel's office. Cipollone was the White House counsel itself, and Philbin was a deputy to him. After the presidency, they became the liaisons for Donald Trump to the National Archives dealing with his presidential records. And so whenever this was happening, this was around the time earlier this year where the investigation was really robust. There were a lot of things that investigators were doing. They were interviewing witnesses such as them. They were subpoenaing the documents to try and get them back. The New York Times has said that Philbin and Cipollone were trying to help get those documents retrieved for the National Archives. We also know from the New York Times reporting, which first broke this story, that the Justice Department was subpoenaing surveillance footage, and on that surveillance footage at Mar-a-Lago saw something that concerned them that then precipitated this search ultimately this month. And all of this put together, all of this would be outlined in that secret affidavit that is in the court record that backed up the probable cause that the Justice Department needed to convince a judge that they should take this unusual step of going into the former president's home in Florida.
And about that affidavit, there's a hearing tomorrow about it, the precursor to the search warrant, and whether the public is going to see it. What can you tell us?
That's right. So this hearing tomorrow, it is before the judge that signed the search warrant, approved it. The judge would have seen this affidavit before. And this hearing that we're going to have tomorrow in Florida, it is about secrecy. Right now, the media and others potentially have been asking to see this affidavit, as is our right to ask for. And the Justice Department is arguing very strongly that they can't let that out there because there are such sensitive details in there, such a sensitive ongoing investigation involving highly classified material that they do not want additional information out there. At this point in time, Donald Trump and his legal team, they have not seen this affidavit. It would have a narrative of a lot of the investigative steps taken. And this morning, tomorrow morning, we are waiting to see if Trump's team speaks up in court and says whether or not they want this to be released or not. Ultimately, it will be up to the judge.
All right, Caitlin, thank you for that new reporting. We appreciate it.
All right, with us now, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Elliot Williams and former Deputy Director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe. There's a hell of a quote from our friend Maggie Haberman in the New York Times in her reporting about Philbin and Cipollone being questioned by the Department of Justice. It says, quote, Mr. Philbin tried to help the National Archives retrieve the material, two of the people familiar with the discussion said, but the former president repeatedly resisted entreaties from his advisors, quote, it's not theirs, it's mine, several advisors say Mr. Trump told them.
So, a couple things. One, John, there's this question of whether Cipollone and Philbin are in trouble based on their role in this. I've been asked that question before. No, these were the people standing between the president and some of his worst impulses. And this whole idea of they're not mine, it's mine, it's not, that's just fundamentally incorrect. They're the American people's documents. Even if they'd been declassified, they're government documents that should have been stored properly in a different way other than at the president's private residence.
What does that tell you, though, in the issue of intent here? They're not theirs, they're mine.
Well, it tells you a lot. And any of us who've raised children have heard that same response in a number of contexts. It doesn't really indicate a high degree of understanding of the Presidential Records Act or property law, for that matter. But I think that's been clear from the very beginning. There is an intentionality here. The simple fact that these discussions began with the National Archives, continued for about 7 months, and in January, of course, the Trump team turned over a third of what they had to the National Archives rather than going through everything. They gave over 15 boxes. We know that the FBI was able to recover an additional 33. So there is intentionality here in that sort, and that's something they'll have to explain.
Well, stick on that word intentionality here. It's not theirs, it's mine. That seems to preclude the possibility that these documents were there by accident. If he's saying they're mine,
That's right.
right? Doesn't that put them in a
absolutely.
different legal category potentially?
Right. No, he actually might believe that they are his and took them out of the White House, intending to take them out of the White House. The problem is you've been a senior government official. I've been a senior government official. You are warned from the day you get in multiple times throughout and on the day you leave that these are not your documents and you have to turn them over. And as a president, there's an additional layer under the Presidential Records Act. So this whole idea, look, we tried having unaccountable leaders in the United States for probably the first half of American history. It didn't work out well. And I think you're seeing some of that here.
Andy, how much insight? Sorry, go on. You were going to say something.
No, I just, I think we have to put it in the context of at least one of the many defenses we've heard so far, which was, oh, this is GSA's fault. It was all just thrown into the wrong boxes and they took the things to Mar-a-Lago. I think that "it's mine" comment really undermines that defense.
How much insight, Andy, can they provide, knowing that they're steering away from stuff that attorney-client privilege, this issue has not been resolved yet? How much insight can they provide into how these documents were handled without going into some of that?
Well, that's going to be tough. Obviously, that'll bump up against what we've seen as a series of claims of privilege and all kinds of different issues regarding the former president and his staffers. However, the revelation, and I'm sure it was a revelation for the FBI agents who attended that meeting at Mar-a-Lago in June, that there was apparently surveillance coverage outside the room that would indicate who was having access to that room, how often people were going in there, what that traffic looked like. That became a very important point for them, and that would explain why they subpoenaed that coverage.
Let me read another quote from Maggie Haberman's reporting that deals with surveillance footage and the fact that they were alarmed with what they saw. At that point, at least one Trump lawyer signed a statement saying material with the classified markings had been returned, according to 4 people familiar with the document. But officials then used a subpoena to obtain surveillance footage of the hallway outside a storage room at Mar-a-Lago and saw something that alarmed them. They also received information from at least one witness who indicated that more material might remain at the residence. People familiar with the investigation.
Oh, my Lord. It's like a law school exam question where you have to count all of the crimes. I'm dead serious here because number one, signing that document could itself be a crime because it's a false statement to government. Number two, not complying with the subpoena is itself, it's a misdemeanor, but it's still a crime. Number three, what you're seeing are potentially crimes or at least gross abuses in judgment happening on camera. And this happens all the time when building investigations. They had evidence and testimony and a background of what was going on, and then were triggered by something they saw on camera that said, wait a second, something doesn't look right here.
All right, Elliot Williams, Andrew McCabe, great to see you both this morning. Thanks so much for coming in.